Hi everybody, this is Kira from Love Life, Abortion Stops a Heartbeat, Vote No, peoplepower.ie campaign. Today I'm here with Anne McElhenney and Phelim McAleer, who are originally from Ireland, and they are filmmakers. They're based in the States in California, and we just saw one of the films that they have produced yesterday, which was shown in the Savoy. It was excellent, and it basically tells the story of a man who ran an abortion clinic who was found guilty of murder for murdering a woman, and also he used to snip the necks of children that were born alive through abortion. So this film was produced through crowdfunding, and it's been a massive success in terms of crowdfunding. So let's talk to them, and let's hear from them. Very good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you're originally from Ireland?
Yes. Donegal.
Well, actually, technically, I'm from Britain.
Yeah. Right.
Omagh.
Okay. Tyrone, is it?
Yes.
Very good, very good. And can you tell me how did the film come about?
Well, the film's called Gosnell, the untold story of America's most notorious serial killer. I happened to be in Philadelphia for another documentary I was making, and I opened the local newspaper, saw this story about this local story of this guy. So I went down to the local courthouse because I'm a reporter, and hung around there, and I walked in, and it was the most amazing story I'd ever seen. The pictures were blowing up the size of that wall. The evidence I heard was amazing. And Gosnell was sitting in front of me, smirking like a classic serial killer sociopath. But behind me was the most shocking thing of all. No media, no journalist in one of the most shocking trials. And it was because this trial was putting a negative face on abortion. And I went back to California, to Dan and our friend Magda. I said, we got to make this project our own. Now we've got to do this. And they said, no, we don't do that. And I ordered the transcripts. We got the transcripts, and it just turned into this amazing story. When you read the transcripts, you cannot make this stuff up. And you saw the film last night.
Yes.
All the crazy stuff is true. You know why they say based on a true story, and then they show that. All our crazy stuff in the film is true. The normal stuff we invented. This is not a normal place. This is not a normal world. Abortion is not a normal world. It's a weird, closed society. That's
protected society.
Protected. It's a secular sacrament, and it has all those protections. And so therefore the world runs amok inside it.
What was the most shocking thing you found about this man, as filmmakers, just as people?
He had cats in the clinic. When the detectives raided it and he wanted to impress them, he did an abortion, came in with the bloody gloves and started eating his lunch with the gloves on.
He kept trophies. He cut the feet off babies that had died there and kept them in jars. And when the cops came, he had those jars in the same place that people were having their peanut butter and jello sandwiches with the label on them. The cops then had to get in touch with the women whose babies had been aborted and whose feet remained part of a collection that he had.
He had a 15-year-old anaesthetist.
Yes.
You know.
All the staff, none of the staff were qualified. He had these nurses who weren't nurses, who had, basically barely finished primary school.
But 2 women died, came out of that clinic dead, went in healthy, came in dead. The health department never set foot in that clinic for 17 years. This is what happens when you bring in abortion. It becomes this protected thing, right. And you have to protect abortion at all costs, and the cost is generally women's lives, right. Children's lives, right. Good practice, everything.
But I think the other thing that's very shocking about this case, I think Kermit Gosnell is a psychopath in anybody's estimation. However, what's very disturbing, and something maybe for people here to take note of, is the Department of Health, which we like the HSE here, turned a blind eye, willfully turned a blind eye. And the people who worked at the HSE there, at the Health Department of Pennsylvania, were nurses, were doctors, were people who were professionals, who had the benefit of a nice life, middle class, with high standards or whatever. And these are the people who protected him, knowingly protected him for over 17 years, as Phelim said, where the clinic wasn't inspected. And there is something about abortion when it's introduced, that there is a class, a group, of people who will protect it at all costs, including journalists. And one of the things that attracted us to the story first was the fact that journalists really had this uniform. They hadn't sat down and had a conspiracy, nothing at all as ridiculous as that. Individually, journalists decided not to cover the trial, right. And many of them actually, when it came to it, admitted why, and they said we were never going to do anything that would put Roe v. Wade, put abortion into a negative spotlight. No matter the consequences, they just were never going to do that. Lots of them admitted that.
Wow.
Even the New York Times had to admit that their coverage was pathetic. The Washington Post apologised. Sarah Cliff from the Washington Post, who had originally, when she was challenged by Molly Hemingway from Get Religion, Molly Hemingway tweeted to her and said, "Aren't you covering this extraordinary trial?" And Sarah Cliff from the Washington Post wrote back and said, "We don't cover local crime stories." Local crime stories. Within 3 days, because the Twitterverse went nuts, they had to apologise. The Washington Post had to say, "Oh well, you know, local
they
crime."
cover Michael Ferguson getting shot.
Michael Brown
getting shot
in
in
Ferguson
as a local crime story. You know,
Trayvon Martin, you know,
all these police shootings. Those are all local crime. Everything,
if you want to call it
everything's
local.
a local crime story. O.J. Simpson isn't a local crime
Until
story.
you get to a place where, you know, you've got this, you know, abortion doctor who is killing tens, hundreds, thousands of children by delivering them alive and cutting their necks with scissors, and somebody says that's not news.
Yes.
And that's not news, and it's not news that the Department of Health didn't inspect the clinic in 7 years. It's not news that a Bhutanese refugee who had been in America for 4 months was dead in a sanctuary city, and no one gave a damn.
Right.
You know, it wasn't news that Samika Shaw, and a young African American mother, was dead and buried, and no one cared. You know, the idea that this wasn't news, this is exactly what news is,
Yes,
and
yes.
it remains. You know, it remains an outrage that this did not get more coverage.
Absolutely. Can I ask you, in terms of this film, has any Irish journalist contacted you in Ireland in relation to you being here in Ireland? Considering we're, you know, in the referendum, it's probably one of the most important decisions that people will make in our lifetime. Have any Irish?
No.
Well, I think it's really good to, you know,
Zero.
So
You're telling me that zero journalists.
Yeah.
have
So we
contacted
sent out a press release covering to everyone. You're here. Thank you very, very much.
Wow.
Spirit Radio were in
Okay.
touch with us. Yeah, that's the beginning and the end of it. And we also got in touch with all the local media in Galway. We're going to be in Galway tonight.
Our film
Lovely.
is one of the most successfully funded
Crowdfunded.
films on
Right,
the planet.
right.
29,000
Two Irish
Right.
people have raised 2.3 million.
Wow.
It was the most successful crowdfunded film on Indiegogo. And Indiegogo is a global brand,
Wow.
a global outlet.
And no journalist has contacted you in Ireland.
No. This isn't a news story, apparently.
Friends, this is what I've been telling you. You're not to trust your government, you're not to trust the media. I don't know if you know this, but the NUJ, as part of their charter, promote abortion. I exposed this a while ago. So every journalist has signed a contract basically in agreement with abortion, and they tell them how to speak on abortion. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No.
You weren't. But it's you know, 80 journalists challenged this in the 80s, and they were ostracized from their job. One brave man took it to court, and they settled out of court. But that's still there coming from England, that the NUJ and all journalists in Ireland have to promote abortion. So it's sickening what's going on in Ireland with both the lies coming from the government, and you're hearing it here from two film producers landing in Ireland for a couple of days with an amazing film that's going to be released in October, showing the horrors of abortion, and not one journalist in this country of Ireland has covered
Well,
the
it's
story.
showing the truth, actually. It's all based on a true story.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's the horrors of abortion or the, you know, I don't know, you know, whatever it is, the truth, it's all based on trial transcripts, and it's not a news story.
Yes, apparently for some reason this story, which is an extraordinary story, suddenly journalists who are supposed to be afflicted with curiosity have completely lost all their curiosity or interest in asking us any questions.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's very disappointing actually. I mean, as a journalist, it's very disappointing. You know, you're not, you know, you're meant to cover the news. This is a newsworthy topic.
That's right. In terms of the actual production of the film, did you come under any political pressure to, you know, with the film?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did you have any problems with the film when you were, you know?
Well,
Yeah,
actors,
lots of problems.
actors kept agreeing to be in it, and then they would, I suppose, talk to their friends or family, whatever, and suddenly realize, oh my God,
I've got a holiday.
I remember I have to go on holiday that week, or I have to do this. So they kept dropping out. When
So that causes
the
problems.
heat got hot,
Right.
and they pulled out.
Okay. And how has the reaction been to the film in America?
So we've had these sneak peeks, like the sneak peek we had in Dublin last night, and then tonight in Galway. We've had them all over the country, and the reaction has been unbelievable. We've really had, yeah, it's been very, very heartening. And you know, people are saying, look, when this thing comes out in October, you know, we're going to go gangbusters and fill the cinemas. And I do think it will do well, but it's been a hard road and a long road. It's been 4 years since we started the campaign to make this film. So we started making this film completely disconnected from anything. We didn't even know about it. I don't even know if they were talking about a referendum in Ireland four years ago. But you know, now that it's coming out in October, we thought it was important to come. You know, we're from here. We're not even Americans. We don't even have green cards. So you know, we're over there on visas. and we have a home here in Ireland. And we thought, you know what, we should really show this. We should try and show this and let people see it. So
yes, and
go away tonight.
Thank you very much for doing it. It was excellent. In terms of anybody working on the film, or in real people that were involved in the story, did you see any people that were pro-choice that maybe have turned to pro-life?
It definitely shattered a lot of people's faith, and I think making the movie shattered a lot of people's faith in abortion, and I think especially people during the trial too, a lot of people who started off as pro-choice, it shattered their pro-choice certainties, and some people turned pro-life. It affected everyone who touched this. Anyone who sees the facts of this case, it shatters what they were told, what the media has told them.
Why do you think some people just do not understand that abortion kills?
Because I think the people who promote abortion are very, very clever and very good at PR. And one of the things what they really are good at, by the way, is having people talk about everything except for what an abortion is. Because that's the awful bit. Once it's all the choice stuff. It all sounds good, or God, protect somebody who's been raped. It's very easy. Those are conversations that I can. Everyone kind of you're kind of right. But look at first of all, the abortion won't cure you if you were raped. It's not a cure. Film makes the point. It's not a time machine. You can't go back to being not a mother. But it's what they actually do, and I wish they'd spend more time describing what it is. And that's one of the things that's good about the movie. And you saw the movie last night. We used the verbatim words that had been used in the trial by the abortion doctors who were asked under oath to explain to the jury the difference between a legal abortion, a good legal abortion, and murder. And I can tell you, we interviewed a lot of the jurors who said they didn't see a distinction.
Right.
And so on the stand you have, and in the film it's played by Janine Turner, a very well-known actress, some of you would know exactly who she was, and she does that part where it's like, when you pull out an arm or you pull out a leg.
That's a good abortion.
And that's in a good abortion. You make a hole at the back of the neck inside the woman and you suck out the brains.
Get the head out.
And it's very, so we were kind of agnostic on the subject, or neutral on the subject, prior to getting involved in this. And, I used to hear stuff like that, of sucking out the brains. I was thinking, that's us pro-lifers, they're all religious nut jobs or whatever. And it's very easy to dismiss that as a liberal, to kind of think, that's all. Well, that's actually how they do it, The head is too big, so you need to suck out the brains. And when the child is very, very small, they use a Hoover. They use a Hoover. And then what they do with the Hoover, and I've seen it, they then have like a sieve. And I've seen it in Gosnell's clinic. I've seen them. Wow. There's a sieve, not made out of metal, but made out of plastic, but a sieve that you would use for flour. They have that. You then have to, and I've spoken to the nurses who work in these places, not in Gosnell's clinic, in other places. All of the remains need to be then put into the sieve. And then you have to go through the sieve. And someone ends up, and that's one of the points that I'd love to say to people in Ireland, actually, by the way. Who out there wants that job? Because, and I'll tell you,
reassemble a baby and make sure there's an arm.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you leave anything in there, the woman dies of an infection.
The doctor then, so the doctor does whatever, but there's somebody, and it'll be somebody very low on the totem pole, by the way. This is not a nurse. Yes. This will be somebody very low on the totem pole who's, would have been stacking shelves at Tesco. This is the job they'll get there. Right. To put those pieces together and say, we got it all.
We got the full baby.
We got the whole baby. We got the whole thing. And that's a job. That's a job, and anyone who says it's not, they are telling a lie. Sure. And I heard the debate on the Late Show the other night, and I actually really regretted that someone hadn't asked the two doctors that were on the yes to abortion side. I wish they'd asked them, have you ever done an abortion yourself? Right. Have you witnessed an abortion? Just for the audience here, the Late Show. Yes. Tell people in Ireland, can you explain in detail, even for the little ones, even for the smallest ones, just tell us what happens. Because I know what happens, because I've spoken to girls women who worked in abortion clinics. One woman in particular, Julie Wilkinson, who worked at a late-term abortion clinic in Boulder, Colorado. And she talked about, this is what they do, you need to reassemble all the pieces. Because of course, if a piece is left behind, exactly as Phelan said, you'll get terrible infections. People need to know that. And what is it that you're reassembling? You are reassembling arms and legs and heads and bits and bones.
Yes, it's absolutely horrific. And it's great that your film is showing the reality of abortion, because that's what it is, friends. How do you think Irish people should vote in this referendum?
We're journalists.
We're journalists. No. People. And by the way, people are of good conscience. People are being asked to make a very serious decision. Yes. I think the decision, as long as people know what they're voting for, what you're being asked to vote for, They're being asked to vote yes or no to protecting the life of the unborn.
Right.
That's all they're being asked for. There is no legislation.
Yes.
There is just that.
Right.
And so people, no, we would never,
People
we
need
would
to
never
tell people how to
instruct
vote, but
tell
people
how
need to
vote.
find out the facts.
Yes, but I would, do a lot of reading. I would
You can read,
suggest-
by the way, you can buy the Gosnell book
Yes,
on,
you can buy the Gosnell book
on Amazon,
on Amazon,
which is
on
a-
ebook, as an ebook if you're in
Yes.
Ireland. That's
yes,
hard books
on
aren't in.
ebooks,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's a
on
New,
Kindle, sorry,
that's a
Kindle.
New York bestseller, by the way.
New York
Yes,
Times
it is.
bestseller.
Yeah, it's sold out everywhere in 3 days. And we also have an audible version of it, which is narrated by myself.
Good one. If hypothetically Ireland was to vote for abortion, do you reckon what happened with Gosnell could potentially happen in Ireland?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's totally.
If it happened in Pennsylvania, which is very progressive, it's not
And it's
some
one of the
backwater.
most regulated states in America.
Yeah.
It's a lot of regulations.
Yeah.
There was no end of regulations. I mean, the law said you had to physically inspect an abortion clinic every year. And then when this pro-choice governor, pro-abortion governor got in, he just ordered his lawyers to re-examine that legislation. And the lawyer says, you know what, actually that legislation doesn't say that. And it did, but they just decided it didn't. And so they never stepped, 2 women died and they never stepped foot